over time, I've noticed a very interesting trend, Austin. And that's that as things get harder and we get better, because as we know, it doesn't get easier, it gets better. I've learned that we actually take enjoyment out of the difficult times, the difficult tasks, the extreme scenarios that we put ourselves or find ourselves in. What do you say?
You know what I say? If people haven't noticed it already or in the previous podcast, we are currently, at least I know that I am, Jose might be slightly, but we're sick. And we're still doing this podcast, whether we want to or not, because it has to get done. And this is the hard shit that we refer to, that happens on a day-to-day basis, that we have become, we like at this point. It is something that I won't shy away from. We like. We might be a little, kind of a little off slightly because we like this shit. However, we do. So when things like this happen and life challenges us and makes the shit harder for us, we take that as a challenge. And you know why we take that as a challenge? It's something that Alex Hormozy said as well. It's like, okay, you should like doing the hard shit because that way nobody else is going to want to do it. And that's why at this point in time, I like this shit. I like getting challenged with waking up with a random fucking sickness and not feeling the best, and then having to go to work and then having to get off work and then instantaneously jump into our entrepreneurial endeavors and then still try to make time for the gym and then try to make time for market research and then eat sometime after that or before that and then do it all over again then for the next day. I like that. Why? Because I know most of you aren't going to do it. The people that are watching this that are subscribed, probably you would do it because, you've been subscribed and watching our content for a while, so you should know what to do. But most people who see this are not going to want to do the shit. And I like that because it makes the barrier to entries that much larger for everyone else to get to the same pot of gold. So if we're digging for gold, and it's like, the old towns, mining towns, where people would come from all over to try to dig for gold because they found that place has a large quantity of gold underneath the ground. So everyone comes from every place to try to dig up that gold, but only a few succeed. And it's like that, but imagine if that gold was all the way across the planet. You know where it's at. You know how to get there, but getting there is the difficult part. Now, most people along that journey are going to encounter some difficult terrain, harsh jungles, on the water, harsh ocean conditions, no water for long periods of time, through walking through a desert, stuff like that you may encounter along the way. Most people are going to quit because it gets difficult. And they're like, we know where the gold is, we know how to get it, but this journey is just too difficult. However, there's going to be, and there always will be, a group of people that say, hey, look, let's just keep going. And more often than not, the people that say, let's just keep going, are the people that get the gold because they continue on the journey, whether they feel like it or not. So when we talk about things like, oh, we're going to have this or we're going to have that, it's not because we can see into the future. No, it's because we like doing the hard work that we know that 99% of people aren't going to do. So that means if we continue to do the hard work that 99% of people won't do, that will get us the results that we want, we're going to get the results that we want. It's just a matter of time. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know that it is going to happen because we're willing to do everything in order to get it, which most of you all are not willing to do.
And in a perfect world, the reward that you get is proportional to the sacrifice that you give. However, as we all know, we do not live in a perfect world, but we can do our best to situate ourselves to make sure that the sacrifices we make are ones that yield the results that we want. Because suffering with no intent of reprieve or with a potential gain is the definition of masochism. So if you want to be a masochist, that's on you. However, look for the things, the hard shit that gains you rewards. That could be going into a new room and presenting yourself to a group of individuals that you normally wouldn't talk to, because the reward that you could get from putting yourself in that room and putting yourself in this area of discomfort is a potential increase in network, a business opportunity, or the acquisition of a mentor. Putting yourself into hard situations can also be going for a run when it's cold, going for a run when it's hot, talking to that beautiful lady across the street that you've been eyeing for the past 5 minutes. It could be anything. It could also be exercising an extreme diet, working towards losing that weight, being in the gym at extraneous amounts of time. But one thing about the hard shit is very simple. You slowly begin to enjoy the process of suffering. You slowly to begin to enjoy the progress that you make, because we're not focused on the goal. The goal is amazing, but you have to fall in love with the process. Now, I know that's such a cliche, and I know you hear that everywhere, but I've said this and I'll say it again. Almost every single cliche is rooted in some degree of truth. And when you love the process, there's no reason why you won't do it. And only naturally will the results follow if you put in the work day in and day out. That person who hammers the calls, that person who hammers the emails, that person who just sits there and refines and refines and refines their presentations, their pitches, just reworks and reworks and reworks their business plans until they're spotless, that person is going to soar above the person who just does it once or twice or doesn't even look at it a second time or doesn't even begin.
And you know, a really good tip for people that want to succeed, this is something that we've picked up naturally, but it's being able to persist through the tough times, through the hard work for long periods of time without gratification. Because at least for people that were born in our generation or, you know, in younger generations, they're used to instant gratification. They're used to participation awards. They're used to getting credit for things that really, frankly, they didn't have anything to do with. So when you get into this business-minded journey, for a while, you're not going to have signs of, or clear signs that you're heading in the right direction. And for most people, that's a problem. However, what we've learned and what we've read about, what we've heard from people who have done it, who are more successful than us, say time and time again that these things are what lead to success. If you just keep doing them and keep improving, you're going to get it eventually. We have kept that in mind in our journey the whole way through to the point to where now, when we're going through things, when we're going through hard times, it's not like, okay, we're going to do this because we know that we're going to get something good out of it right away. No, it's we're going to keep doing this and keep doing this and doing it again and again and again and again until I get fucking bored, then do it again and again after that until we wake up one day and then we see the results, because we know it's going to happen. You know that if you do push-ups every day for a year, a certain amount of push-ups, your chest is going to get bigger. It is. So most people know the shit that it takes to get successful, or the shit that it takes to get money, or the shit that it takes to become a better person. It's just that most people give up because they don't have the instantaneous gratification that they're used to. And we use this reference a lot because it applies to a lot of things. And as you go, if you're doing this all at the same time, you can see how they apply and relate to each other. But at the gym, if you're at the gym and you are thinking that you're going to see some noticeable improvements after a couple days, you're delusional. But if you continue to put in the work over and over again, eventually your body is going to reflect that. So when you're thinking about your business or whatever it is that you're doing, if you continuously put in the work over time, you're going to see where you started and then where you are now and how you've improved since then. Without that gratification, that instant gratification, if you don't value that much and you don't seek that much and you cast it to the side and you're thinking about the long term and thinking about the everyday steps that you have to do in order to get to that long-term goal, you will succeed eventually. And I believe that has helped us substantially throughout this process because, again, when you're thinking that way and you're thinking about the short term, most people quit because they're not seeing the results right away. Most people quit their workout plan because they're not seeing the results right away. Most people quit their diets, business, all that shit because they're not seeing the results like that.
Well, you know what's funny about that point is oftentimes we actually tell people to focus on the moment, on the now, and not the goal. So there's actually a time and a place to do both. Let me see if I can figure it out because this just came to my mind as you're mentioning this, because I realize that most of the time we tell people, and we do this as well, we don't focus on the overarching goal because it seems so large, so insurmountable, so far away that it's overwhelming you. But there's also a point in time where you need to focus on that. When do you think you have to focus on the goal, and when do you think it's opportune to not focus on the goal and rather focus on the moment?
I think that, and this is why I feel like we operate very well, because you focus on the goal, in my opinion, when new circumstances or new information is thrown at you and you have to determine if that is lucrative for you or not. Because say if you're a jet and your path, your trajectory is set for Dallas, right? You're going to Dallas and there's going to be a lot of wind. There's going to be a lot of turbulence that might knock you off that path. And whenever you get knocked off that path and get pointed in a different direction, then you have to be more focused on that goal more than ever. Mm-hmm. When you're heading through the air with no turbulence and you're just focused on the rudimentary things that you have to do, you don't really necessarily have to focus on the goal like that because you're already aligned. You're already there. You just focus on doing little things, making sure everything's okay, making sure your co-pilot's good, the instruments are working correctly, all the little things. But if you get knocked off, some new information comes up, or something breaks, or again, turbulence, wind is knocking you off the path, then in my opinion, you have to be focused on that goal more than ever, because if you're not going to end up where you want to be.
So when it's monotonous, focus it on the moment, and when it's difficult, focus on the goal. Is that, am I understanding correctly? Because I'm trying to give our viewership a framework, right? Because I'm thinking about the younger version of me who doesn't know how to balance when to focus on the large goal and when to focus on the evolution at hand. Right? Let's talk about our current business. Let's see if we can come to a conclusion within ourselves. So right now we're building a international, what is it? Supply chain.
Yes.
I was going to say product chain. I don't know why. International supply chain for one of our businesses. Do I focus on the long-term goal, or do I focus on every evolution? I would say right now I have to focus on the long-term goal while putting it together. However, when it comes to the retail front, I have to focus on the short-term goal. But what's the distinguishing factor? what's the one thing or couple variables that tell me focus on the now versus focus on the future? This is actually a pretty good question in my opinion, because I can't come up with a direct answer.
Right. And again, this is why I think that we work so well together, because if you guys don't know us, Jose is normally the person who's in the weeds and focused on the monotonous, focused on the little specific details that make everything work. And then my main objective is to focus on the goal and make sure that we're not veering off track. So when you have two people or you're working with another person and they're just naturally specialized in doing that, it works. But if you're by yourself, it's a little bit tricky because you have to play both parts and you have to know when, like you're saying, to focus on one or the other. So let's see if I can break it down in a more simpler way using a more simpler or more simple example. So I'd say at the beginning of whatever it is that you're setting to work on, whatever that may be, if you have a solid plan and you have a solid foundation and you have a solid goal set at the beginning, I don't care how long it takes you to set that up. That's up to you. But if you have a solid trajectory for where you're trying to go at the beginning, then once you get going with that plan and you're in the weeds, you more often than not will or should end up where you want to be or somewhere in the range of where you want to be. So I'd say if you're going to think about when to focus on those certain things at the beginning, I'd say you have to be more focused on the goal more than ever. But as these certain nuances come up and you have to get very specific about certain things, then you get in the weeds about how things are going to go. Because and again, with two people or more people, it works because you have differing minds and people can focus on different things. But if you're one person, if you focus too much on the goal midway through and not the tasks, you're going to kind of make yourself not depressed, but kind of depressed because you're going to
get the existential dread.
Yeah, because you're not where your goal is yet, and you realize that you're not where your goal is yet. So at that point in time, in the middle or in the mid to late mid stages, you have to focus on the little shit as opposed to the goal. But at the very beginning, you have to make that goal your clear cut fucking thing that you won't veer off of, and make a plan, make the foundation for knowing what you have to do to get there, or at least around that, so that when you do jump in the weeds and you do come up for air, you're still on the same path. It's like if you're a swimmer, right? Most of the time when you're swimming, your head is underwater. However, if you have a good plan and you've practiced and you've done certain things, you know how certain things are going to go or should go, or you have a good plan as to where the wall is coming up to where you have to do the little flip and then push back that way and all that shit, it makes you being underwater easier to do because you have a goal, you have a clear-cut plan as to how to do this shit. Mm-hmm. But the whole race, damn near, after that beginning portion, your head is underwater. You can't see what the fuck is going on. You're just swimming, right? So at the beginning, again, in my opinion, that's when you have to focus on the goal, really. But other than that, after that point sets off, your plan has to be rock solid, because you're going to be in those weeds unless you have multiple people that can focus on different things. So you can,
I'm thinking from a similar perspective, but I'm going to focus on the gym here.
I was thinking about.
So the way I can distill this down to the smallest possible example is when you have energy, you can focus on the long-term goal. When you're fresh, when you're refreshed, when you're bursting and booming with energy, which has a tendency to be at the beginning of any endeavor. While when you're exhausted, when you're experiencing fatigue, when you're getting those last reps out, you need to focus on the now, that evolution of whatever you are on, because you can only use what you have to finish what you can. So, looking at this in a greater scope, if you're refreshed, if you have energy, if you have the mental bandwidth, if you have the clarity, you can say, hey, I want to have a 12 pack. But when you're doing 120-pound weighted sit-ups and you have 3 more reps to bang out and you're fucking fatigued, you don't have the energy to say, I want a 12 pack. No, you don't even have energy to think. You only have energy for those 3 reps. You focus on those 3 reps. Right. So when you're running a business or pursuing a career or pursuing any goal, there comes a point in time where you're energetic, you're excited, you're doing it, you're doing the thing, you're showing up, you're smiling, you're laughing, you're booming with energy. When you're like, yes, I'm going to get my PhD. Yes, I'm going to become a pilot. Yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I'm going to get my license for commercial industrial vehicles. Yes, I'm going to do XYZ. I'm going to get married. Yeah. But when you start fighting with your spouse or potential spouse, when you fail that test for your pilot license, when you fail that PR when it comes to the gym, when you have not slept well, when you're sick, when you're hungry, when you're cold, when you're alone, you're not really thinking about that long-term goal. Because if you start thinking about that long-term goal, you're going to realize the disparity between where you are and where you're going, and that's going to bring you down even further. Wow. It's going to bring your vibration down. Or if you're a different breed, it might motivate you. However, for the most part, most people, it's not a very positive thing to do. So therefore, when you hit that point, that bottom or that fatigue, that's when I think you should focus on the now. That's when I think you should say, hey, all I have to do is go at this one more day. And then the next day, and then the next day, and do it one more time, and then again, and repeat that. That's all I have to do. I don't even have to think about where the hell I'm going. I already did the planning. I already set the trajectory. I already made the structure. I already set the diet. I already talked to who I needed to talk to. I already got myself in the right location. I already improved my network. I already worked on my appearance. Now I just have to do it. That's it. That's what I think.
We were able to work through that on the podcast and come up with some shit that I think was, pretty digestible. So, hey, y'all get in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about that. If we're right, wrong, or everything in between.
Or if you disagree, too.
Yeah, if you disagree,
we're always open for the debate.
Please let us know. And, hey, we always love to talk with you guys and, interact with you guys. So, shout out y'all. But, hey, the AM Club Podcast, baby.
Signing out.
Mic check. The AM Club Podcast.